What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned on this journey?
I was helping a family find a house for their daughter. We spent 18 months searching for a house for her, and I found a vacant house and went, great, sight unseen, let's just take it. I got a 2-year lease on that property and nobody wanted it. So the family did not want to move in there, they didn't like it. We had other clients, potential clients come through, didn't like it. So it sat vacant for 6 months. I lost, I think it was about 30 grand I lost with that. And we never actually used it for SIL. I actually ended up subleasing it to just an individual who needed housings. The biggest lesson is it's not about what I think is going to work. It's always about what the client wants to work. So,
What would be your biggest or your number one tip for them moving into being a provider?
again, I'm going to crunch the numbers.
Every SIL provider knows the challenges: compliance, rosters, claims. But what if you could work smarter, grow faster, and make a bigger impact? Welcome to SILosophy, where we have real conversations about what it takes to succeed in supported independent living. This podcast is powered by Tania Gomez Consulting and Resolve. Let's get into it.
So welcome to SILosophy. Today I'm joined by Cedar Anderson from MyAssista. Thanks so much for joining us today, Cedar.
Hi, Tania. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So to begin with, Cedar, can you tell us a little bit about you and your role at MyAssista?
Sure. MyAssista is my company that I founded in 2017, and it was founded because I had a personal situation. I had some major surgery and I needed assistance. I needed help in order to complete some work tasks, and I was fortunate enough to have people to support me through that process, and it got me thinking around how to start this business. What do others do if they don't have a village of people? So that was how it started. So my role is director. I started from scratch and have done everything. So that's my role, and I still do everything. I come from a corporate background, a mixture of hospitality for 17 years and then the vocational education sector for 13 years. And over the last 5 years that I was in the vocational education sector, I juggled the formation of MyAssista at the same time as working as a general manager at an RTO here in Brisbane.
Yeah, wonderful. And tell us what kind of supports MyAssista provides to people with disability.
We provide a range of supports. We are registered for a few things, but our specialty is one-to-one SIL. We're very good at providing person-directed care, one-to-one SIL. We also do community access. We're also registered for support coordination. So we have a great number of people that we support through that service. And we also have personal training, cleaning, and travel and transport.
Okay, great. And how did you end up providing one-on-one SIL? What was that journey? Why did you decide on one-on-one SIL and not the normal 3-to-1 SIL? And how did you kind of navigate through figuring out what services or where your specialty would lie?
It started with a gentleman that I was doing support coordination for, and he had a need to live. He was living in a shared house. Living in a shared facility impacted his ability to socialise. He didn't enjoy socialisation. He had an acquired brain injury, and so noise and conversation were impactful for him. And if he wasn't on his own with one other person, he gets lost mentally and can't see and understand what's going on. So for us, we were supporting him with support coordination and trying to find him a suitable SIL provider. And at that time, so we're talking 4 to 5 years ago, at that time there were not a lot of options here on the coast for smaller providers. And so I was like, I could probably assist you with this. And so how that started, we had sourced some support workers to work with him from another company, and the residents that we had supplied for him had an on-site concierge model that just didn't work for him. He's not able to make decisions around needing support. And so it was about putting together a team that he could learn, they were there for him and to understand his unique needs, because he can't explain what his issues or concerns are. So the idea around providing person-directed care and one-to-one with a regular, consistent support team, there was no one else doing that at that time. They were large companies, and we just saw significant results. He went from not wanting to have a support worker there to now relying on them and using them to encourage him to complete activities. He's now in employment, so we've supported him to gain employment through allowing him to recognise that we're there to support him, not to tell him what to do, and to allow him still have choice and control.
That's an amazing success story.
Yeah, it's been a significant journey. It's been great.
What do you think is the hardest part about being a SIL provider?
There are a few challenges with being a SIL provider. One is the staff. In order to have good staff, you need to find good people who believe that it's a calling and enjoy what they do, and they need to be open to different ways of providing support. I lost a few staff in the very early days because they didn't believe the model of care that we were providing was correct, didn't believe that we should be allowing the client to make a choice and to make choices that were sometimes risky. And so I literally had arguments with seniored people that have been in the sector a long time telling me that what we were doing was wrong and we shouldn't be allowing this person to have this much choice. So staffing. And the other is around managing the costs associated with a SIL property. You've got to really crunch your numbers and understand what is financially viable, and you've got to really, and that's for every single property that you have, and manage those costs appropriately. As we all know in this sector, wages are your biggest cost. And so mine were significant right at the very beginning because I chose to pay above award so that I would have no issues with people completing overnight shifts. And we've never had any issues with people completing overnight shifts because we pay above award. People put their hand up all the time to do those shifts. So knowing your numbers, knowing what you can play with, and being flexible with your profit margins to understand if I can provide consistency of care, it's going to cost me another 2%. Okay, is it worth it in the long run? What am I here to do? I'm here to support this client. So yes, it's beneficial in the long run.
And when you're taking on a new participant into a one-on-one model, do you have to run the numbers on the funding that they have to make sure that the model stacks up?
Yes, always. So we will always offer a couple of options. So another gentleman that we provide support for currently, we're doing 24-hour care. We historically up until June, July this year, we were providing 13 hours of care. He needs 24-hour care, but his plan doesn't allow for that. So we had to be creative with use of technology, with use of doorbells that would alarm us if he leaves the property. And we're fortunate that we've got all of our SILs in the one location. So we were able to say, if this happens, this individual has to go from this property and go and support him to go back to his apartment. So it's really about being flexible, offering different solutions and being creative with it, because everybody has different funding amounts, and so you can't have a cookie cutter method. So you've got to work out what is it that they want to achieve, what's essential, and what are some options that we can provide that meet the financial requirements.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the being creative part is really important because, as you said, everyone's so individual that what worked really well in this other location with this other participant potentially isn't going to work. You can't just replicate it.
Correct.
Where most good processes, like a McDonald's approach, you just cookie cutter it and it works every time and you get that template working well. With the individuality of every participant and every location and every support worker, there's so many variables there to consider.
100%. So we have a framework that we use to onboard a client, and that's always the same. But part of that framework is understanding what are the unique needs, and then it's about building the team around that individual that assist them to meet those needs and adjusting the roster. So we have no roster that is the same for any of our clients. So the 24-hour care every model, every house is different.
That's really interesting. How do you manage then all of those variables in a small business?
Lots and lots of communication. I have a fantastic operations manager who started with that first gentleman who started as a support worker. She has significant experience within the sector, and we complement each other very well. We have similar values and decision-making processes. So I trust her, and she is on the phone every day to both clients and staff. We use technology, so we use a messaging app. So we've got groups that are set up for each client, and we will send information to those groups that's relevant about that client. So feedback from potentially parents or other stakeholders, feedback about changes, those sort of things for each particular group. So we're always on those apps and having communication backward and forward. So that is the key for us that's been successful.
And there's lots of other models of disability housing outside of the one-on-one SIL. There's models like the one, the group living, like the standard SIL, which would be a 1-to-3 ratio as an example. There's things like ILO, there's respite, there's drop-in supports. Why did you decide that one-on-one model was your way of doing things? Well, I don't know if you think it's better or not, but is the way you do it?
I think it is better because it's about a relationship with the client, and that relationship allows you to understand what is working and what's not working. You can see minute changes and you can track that. You learn behaviours. You learn behaviours, but you also learn to recognise things. In a relationship, you can generally see by looking at someone if they're unhappy, and that's what this allows us to do. So if there's something going on, and particularly for our non-verbal, we're able to go, right, there's something not happening here that normally would happen, and it allows us to keep an eye on that, I suppose, quicker than what it would be if there was multiple people involved. So we build teams of between 6 and 8 around a client. And always the client can choose not to have someone there if there's an issue. But it's about the relationship, and that is, for me, that's what's really important. And that when we speak to the clients, that's what they want. They don't want different people coming in. They don't want to have to tell their story over and over again. They want to have consistency. They want reliability, and that's what this allows us to do. So if we've got a team, and on the flip side, if we've got a team that are guaranteed set hours, we don't have trouble with maintaining and keeping staff.
Yeah.
So it's beneficial for both the client and for us as a business.
So it's a values-driven decision around.
100%.
Okay. Have you looked at other models and ruled them out based on the business model itself as well? Is there perks for you in the business model of one-on-one? Does it stack up better financially?
No, it doesn't stack up better financially, no. I think, and that's a business decision. If we can get results, it's not about the bottom dollar.
Yeah.
Like the bottom line for us is there, but, it's about carefully managing that. But it's not always about that. It's about seeing the difference that we're making, having clients who make gifts for us because they're so happy we're considered part of their family, right? So, and that they feel that they can be themselves and they don't have to rehash everything. So there's connection. So the different models, I've been in some of the houses, we've taken over from a couple of different providers that have had rotating different staff and had more people in, and we've taken them out from a group home into a one-to-one, and instantly you see a result. So the gentleman that's got 13 hours of care was in a group home and had behaviours, didn't want anyone touching his stuff, which is common. And so how do you manage that? So we had to be creative. And so it doesn't matter about the bottom dollar. There's always a solution. You just have to think a little bit differently to come up with a solution. So, and that means that if he does leave in the middle of the night, at the moment, I'm the one that's got to deal with it. I'm the one that's got to jump out of bed and go and get him. But because he's no longer in a shared environment, he's not having those behaviours. So it's beneficial in the long term. And again, that model works for us, and I choose to follow that because it's always about the client. It's never about what we want. It's about what they need.
Do you think that's what sets you apart from other providers?
I think it's a big difference that we have, 100%. And I am very cautious of the term person-centred care. We don't use that term. We follow a model called person-directed care, regardless of somebody's disability and whether or not they are verbal or non-verbal. There are always ways that they can communicate to us about their likes, dislikes. And so we will always be guided and directed around what it is that they want to achieve or do. So that's very important to us, and that model is what points us as a standalone, I suppose, for providing this service in this sector.
What do you think is the most rewarding part of the work that you do?
Definitely the connections that you have with the clients, the families. You know, we've got families that, because I am still involved on a day-to-day basis, and I make sure that I'm involved and I know what's going on. And so they all have my phone number, and contacting them and getting feedback about your team are amazing. I now have my family back. I now have my dad back. I no longer have to care for him, or I now have my brother back. I no longer have to be the carer. That is, it gives me goosebumps because it's making a difference not just to one individual but to a whole group. And that's what keeps us going, it's just for me personally, and I don't share this story a lot, but I'm a twin. My twin was born with a congenital heart disease that impacted her, and I was her protector because she wasn't allowed to do anything. I get very passionate about making sure that people are protected and that they can have that relationship, because in a lot of environments you see that taken away from them or choices made for them when it shouldn't be. We're all afforded that right to be able to be an individual, and for us giving that relationship back, that's a key driver.
You gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, I get very emotional with it because
is that why it's called MyAssista?
Yeah, it was my helper. It was originally
because
around
of your
being
sister. MyAssista is pretty close to my sister.
No, she works in the business. She's part of the business, and she is brilliant at what she does. No, the name was around my helper, or it was actually my angel or something like that, but all those names were taken. So I was like playing with words, and that was MyAssista. So it was a combination. But yeah, my helper. I'm not there to do it for you. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to tell you what to do. So it is very important. There's a young man that we still support, and he rang out of the blue a couple of years ago. I think it was 2019. So we've been supporting him since then. And he was sitting, I went and did a meet and greet with him. He was sitting opposite me. His mum was at the other end of the table. And I said, "Hi, thanks for letting me come and meet you and seeing, what it is you need. So tell me exactly how is it that we can help you? What do you want us to do for you?" And he sat there for about 10 seconds looking at me, and he said, "You are the first person who has ever asked me that." He said, "Normally they talk to my mum." I said, "Why would I ask your mum? Your mum doesn't live here. So it's all about you." And I will never forget that. Why would we talk to another person about what it is you want?
Yeah. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned on this journey?
Our choices are different to our clients' choices. We really need to keep that as part of our focus. It's really integral. So in the SIL environment, back in 2020, and I was helping a family find a house for their daughter who has Angelman syndrome. So she can't live with a group of other people as well. She has to live independently, and we were searching for houses. And at that time, in the middle of COVID, housing was very tight. We spent 18 months searching for a house for her. And I found a vacant house and went, "Great, sight unseen, let's just take it." I got a 2-year lease on that property, and nobody wanted it. So the family did not want to move in there. They didn't like it. We had other clients, potential clients come through, didn't like it. So it sat vacant for 6 months. So the biggest lesson for me was it's not about what I think is going to work. It's always about what is it the client wants and that they think is going to work for them. I lost, I think it was about 30 grand I lost with that. And we never actually used it for SIL. I actually ended up subleasing it to just an individual who needed housing. So the biggest lesson is it's not about what I think is going to work. It's always about what the client wants to work. So, and then the numbers. The numbers are always you've got to crunch your numbers. If you don't, you're not going to be financially viable.
So what numbers do you crunch?
Yeah, okay. So the revenue, potential revenue, then the costs associated with providing the services, and then any additional costs. So I think I shared with you we have a bit of a social element within the business that we support our clients financially with some of the rent and how much of that can I actually afford to pay. Some of the utilities, how much are we affording to pay ourselves as a business, and then what is the margin that we get out of that. And so we do have a minimum margin that we must achieve, and it's got to meet that. If it doesn't, then we've really got to have a hard conversation around either a better contribution from the family or coming up with some other solutions. Yeah.
There's not many providers who talk to me about how they manage their money. Most people don't do that very well. So it's always interesting to ask the question about what it is that you're tracking and, to see how that's done. I think that's really helpful for providers. I wanted to ask, if you were talking to a brand new provider, whether they're SIL or any kind of provider, but I guess SIL because it has an added element of housing, which is new, and you might have never managed a property before as a SIL, as a NDIS provider, what would be your biggest or your number one tip for them moving into being a provider?
Again, I'm going to crunch the numbers. It's always, it has to be financially viable. So if you've got a client that has a 1-to-3 ratio and you've got one client in that house, you are never going to make any money out of that and you're going to go backwards. So you're not going to be able to help anybody.
Yeah.
So I would suggest in that instance, get a wait list, get the clients coming in first, keep that property hot, and then once you've got the clients, you'll break even just about. But make sure you've got the clients first before you put that significant investment in there. You hear conversations all the time about individuals who are doing that, taking their first client on a 1-to-3 ratio. It doesn't cover anything over night shifts, so they're losing money right from the start. And so that's not the best way to start a business. If you don't have money set aside to keep you going for at least 3 to 4 months, then you're not going to be able to continue. So think about your processes 100%. Always make sure, get it out of your head. As I started this business, I knew what I was doing. It does take time to write it down, to put it on paper and to share it with your staff. That's also very important. And the other thing I would say is don't do it all on your own. Get people to help you.
Yeah, that's all really great advice. So we've talked about a lot today. We've talked about how you started this journey, what sets you apart, some of the challenges you faced, some of the lessons that you've learnt, the hardest bits, the most rewarding bits. I guess I'm interested in your future at MyAssista and where you feel the future would lie, or what's your goal for the future?
So for us moving forward, this week's actually been a significant week for us. I started the process of an aged care application, put down some money for that this week. So for us, the plan moving forward is we're actually not focused on recruiting new NDIS participants. We are still assisting our current clients, and if we've got new clients coming to us from existing relationships, we will continue to support them if we can. And we do have new clients starting next week, but we are not actively marketing for new NDIS business. Moving forward, we're actually focused on different revenue streams coming in. So we're approved for NISQ, which is another disability-related funding scheme in Australia, but in Queensland. We've got some clients that we support with that. So same skill set for our staff. So it's really not a big stretch for what we're doing, as well as focusing on the growth of the Department of Veteran Affairs and Aged Care, and continuing with our relationships with Cottage Respite. So we're the only provider in Southeast Queensland that does a one-to-one model in our cottage. And so we have a wait list that is just significant. So just continuing to do that. And I do have a few things I'm working on in the background that I'm not going to share, but it's more of an aged care focus, which is desperately needed within this area in particular in Queensland. So that's our focus moving forward. So a little bit of a looking at different streams of revenue so that there is consistency with the business, so my staff are secure, so that I'm not going to get a phone call or get notification that I need to stop serving one revenue stream, which is what happens. So.
Yeah, it's a very smart idea. Diversification's always good to do.
Yeah, so we've been doing that for a long time. So the tenders that we have or the grants that we have been since 2020. So they support our business, and financially at the moment I'm swinging it around. We've got NDIS does 60% of our revenue and 40% is the other streams that we have, but it's growing. So, yes.
Amazing. I think that is all great. Lastly, if there's someone who wants to reach out to you to learn more about what you do, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, sure. So my email is on our website. They can contact me through there. There's a contact us section on our website. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. We've got Facebook pages for the business as well as a personal one. So there's different ways that they can reach out to me. We've got a 1300 number that they can leave a message on as well. So there's many ways.
Perfect. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of SILosophy. If this resonated with you, take a second to subscribe and share it with someone in the SIL space who really needs to hear this. Don't forget to connect with Tania Gomez Consulting on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook for more resources, conversations, and support to help you grow your impact. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep making a difference.